All right, gentlemen, page 672. So we're talking about the limitations on the Kohen, and if you take a look at, we're going to see two psukim now. Look at Pasuk Vav for a second. Kedoshim yu le'Eloheim. 4 lines from the bottom. They shall be kadosh to their God. And you take a look at Rashi, it's the left column, 5 lines from the bottom. Kedoshim yu, Rashi says, al korcham, against their will. We just had that in Tosos, right? Al korcham. Al korcham yakdishu bezdin, bekach. Now that against their will means that if a Kohen is doing something that he shouldn't be doing, like we see in the next pasuk, that they're not allowed to marry certain women, so Beis Din have to force them to get divorced. And back in the day of Beis Din, if a Kohen decides he's going to marry a Grusha, Beis Din would say to him, sir, that's not going to work. You're going to have to divorce her. And if the Kohen says, well, I'm not that frum, right? So they make him frum. You ever seen straps at your lap filling around your hand? Seven straps? That's not the only leather that leaves marks on the body, right? So you take a piece of rawhide, and they convince him to be frum. Right? They have to. There's actually a case, a Kohen who won't divorce. Here, look at the next one. Look at the next passage. Now, the second passage I want to show you. Top of 674. Vikidashto, you shall make him holy. Take a look at Rashi. Top Rashi on the page. Vikidashto al korcho, against his will. She'im lo ratza legoresh, if he doesn't want a divorce, hal kehu, hit him, v'yasrehu, yasrehu, torment him, ad she'yagaresh, until he does. So if there's a Kohen after the time, in post-Talmudic period, there's actually a documented case of a Kohen who was married to a divorcee, and the Beis Din said, you're going to have to divorce. They still had a certain amount of control. They said, you're going to have to divorce her. And he said, I'm not going to divorce her. And they wanted to move. They wanted to leave town and go somewhere else where they could stay married. So the Beis Din got a hold of the guy, and they cut off his fingertips. Why? So that he can't do the Birkas Kohanim in another town. If he's married to a divorcee, he can't do the Birkas Kohanim. But they have no way of knowing how are they going to enforce that? Right? Well, they enforced it. So yeah, that works. Do you know there's actually a case of a woman? There's actually a case of a woman who was she was. This is also this is discussed later. A woman who was living, she was committing immorality with a goy, and the Beis Din, they obviously told her to stop, and she refused to stop. So they severed her nose. They cut off her nose.
I just have a question.
What
are people who did it? Specifically people who did, because if you were told, hey, like Beis Din,
you obviously there were certain people who are more capable of that sort of thing than others. Like, for example, I can't shecht an animal. A person who becomes a shochet is somebody. The Gemara says a person's born under a certain mazel. You have a person who's born under the mazel of what's called ma'adim. Ma'adim in modern Hebrew they call Mars. His mazel is he's a blood guy. A guy. 1 second. He's a guy who's born under the mazel of blood. So the Gemara says if he's a rasha, if he's no good, he'll become an outlaw. He'll kill people. If he's a beinoni, he's an average guy. He'll become a shochet. And if he's a tzaddik, he'll become a moil. He'll become a ritual. He'll do bris milas. But it's got to be somebody who can handle it. You know that in the bris milah ceremony, and during the benching, so we say there are 6 harachamans. We say harachaman. We add in harachaman, and we say during the benching. One of them is that the person ha'ish hayore v'racha levav, somebody who's afraid and is soft-hearted, what we call a coward. Ish hayore v'racha levav is not qualified to be a moil because he can't take the sight of blood. In shchita, there's a concept of a person passing out. It's a concept of the guy, the shochet, actually fainting while he's shechting the animal, because there's a lot more blood than you think when they shech the chicken. Is nishkeferlich. When they shech the behemoth, when they shech a calf or they shech the cow, so blood comes spurting out. Blood goes spurting to the wall. The Gemara talks about blood that you see on the walls. When the animal, there's a first bellow when they shecht it. I wouldn't even know because I can't even watch a video of it. I would pass out. No question about it. No question about it. I would pass. Even a chicken was hard for me to watch. And at a bris milah, I'm the farthest guy in the room when there's a bris milah. I go. What do you call it? I've held babies on my lap during the bris. I've been the sandik. But when I'm the sandik, my eyes are closed. My eyes are closed. As soon as he puts the baby, he tells me here to hold the legs. But as soon as he puts the baby, my eyes are closed. Before he even takes off the diaper. I don't want to see nothing. I tell the guy, just tell me when it's over. Everybody thinks I have intense kavana. Because I'm sitting there like this the whole time. They think I have intense kavana. Me and Eliyahu Hanavi. I got news for you. It ain't kavana. All I'm thinking is, just come on, just get this over with real quick. Right? That's all. I'm not interested. Not interested in seeing it. I'm not interested in what are you calling it. It's not. We had a guy here once at Ohr Somayach. There was actually a bris. The moil was a guy from my friend of mine from the neighborhood. It was a rav, and so there's a guy here. This is many years. This is like one of my first years here. This is like we're going back way back. And this guy was a pre-med student who was doing volunteer work in a New York emergency room. So you can imagine, New York hospital emergency room, you've probably seen some pretty good things, right? In a New York City emergency room. So they had the bris here at Ohr Somayach. This guy passed out. His pre-med school had passed out. So when I saw the mole in the neighborhood, so I said to him, by the way, that guy who passed out, he was, first I asked the guy what happened. He said to me, well, I was a little lightheaded because I hadn't eaten breakfast and there was more blood than I expected. That's what he said. So I said to the moil, when I saw the moil in the neighborhood, I said, by the way, that guy who passed out, he's a pre-med student. So the moil started laughing. I said, he said there was more blood. He said he started laughing. I said, why? He said when he came home from the bris, his wife said to him, the moil told me this, that his wife said to him, did everything go okay today? So he goes, yeah, why not? So she pointed to his collar. He had some blood on his collar. So he told me that once in a while when you do a bris, that once in a while you get it spurting out a lot more than normal. You get a spurter. He said this one was a spurter. So he said he can understand why the guy passed out. Right? So he said there people have a nature for it. So you're talking about removing her nose. And I don't know that people are born under the mazel of nose removal, not mazel. But yeah, obviously guys who are doing it are guys who are capable of doing it. In any event, that's called kiddush. That's number one. Number two, more than that. Number two, vikidashto, on page 674, we learn an interesting halacha here. Vikidashto means you got to make a Kohen holy. And we learn from here that why does the Kohen lead the benching? Why does the Kohen get the first aliyah? From this pasuk, vikidashto. From vikidashto, you have to hold a Kohen. None of you guys are Kohanim, are you? Oh yeah, Avram, you are. Yeah, me too. What a coincidence. And vikidashto, I think we'll spend some time on this pasuk. The vikidashto means that you have to give the Kohen the first honor. You give him the first aliyah. You lead the benching. And what a lot of people don't know is that if you're sitting at a meal, you're supposed to let the Kohen help himself first. How do you like that? Oh, that one never. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. You want to bench. You want to get aliyah, but give me the food. No, it doesn't work that way. You're supposed to let the Kohen help himself first. However, there's a limitation on that. You don't have to do it at an expense to yourself. What would be an example of expense to yourself? You're at a Shabbos meal, and you like the dark meat of the chicken, and they pass the chicken platter to you, and there's a Kohen sitting next to you, but there's only one piece of dark meat left. You don't have to give up something for the Kohen. You have to honor him to take first. So if there are 2 pieces that you let him take, but you don't have to give up something. I once had a situation. I was, when people have their lulavs and esrogs, so you go to a rav to check the lulav and esrog. Now, most people who have been learning Torah for a while, they can look at a lulav and esrog and they know if it's kosher or apostle. They know if it's kosher. Often you're going to the rav to find out from the rav if it's mehuder. If it's a top grade, you know if it's kosher, you know if it's possible. You're going there to show him your esrog or your lulav. You want to know how is this like grade A, grade triple A? How good is it? But you know it's good enough. If it's puzzle, you know it's puzzle. So many years ago, I was standing in line when we first moved into the neighborhood. So the Rav lives upstairs from me. So we went, I think it was the first sukkahs there. So we get up there, and there's a line of people waiting to show the Rav their lulovs and their esrogs. So two former friends of mine were standing in line over there, and they were ahead of me. So I said to these guys, while you guys are waiting to find out if your lulovs are mehuder, maybe you want to fulfill a Torah command of v'kidashto and let me go ahead of you in line. Now, they didn't like that. They declined my offer, but they didn't have a real good reason, but they declined the offer. So then, former friends, yeah. Well, the former friends, because they rejected me, not I rejected them. So I finally made it into the Rav. So I said to the Rav, I told him what happened. I said, did they have to give me their place in line? He said, no. I said, why not? He said, because you don't have to give a Kohen your money. That's not part of Kiddashto. You don't have to give your Kohen your money. And you don't have to, unfortunately, you don't have to give a Kohen your money. To give up your time is like giving up your money. So if you come to a doorway and you're with a Kohen, so you let the Kohen go first because it's an insignificant amount of time. But if it means waiting another 10 minutes to go show the Rav 10 minutes, it's a significant chunk of time. So for a significant chunk of time, it's like giving money. I can't walk up to the guy and say, hi, I'm a Kohen, give me your money. I could if I've got a gun in my hand, but then I would drop the Kohen business. But you have no obligation, hi, I'm a Kohen. Well, no nafkamina, I got a 22, by the way, So no, there's no nafkamina. There's no nafkamina of whether or not he's a Kohen. You have to give him his money. Now, one second. Where this does come into play, and this comes into play, halacha. By the way, when I first it wasn't first married. It was already my second year. I was in my second year of marriage, and one day, my wife asked me to take the garbage. So I don't know why it took me so long. And I said to her, I can tell you the very words of the conversation. I said to her, how would it look for me, a Kohen, to take the garbage? And my wife said to me, how would it look for you, a Kohen, to be single? Right? So I took the garbage. Then I asked the Rav again why I have to take the garbage. Right? Now I knew my wife, Ishto Kigufo, your wife is yourself, but I was more curious, the technical end of it, about why. So he said to me, not all of the orange peels and eggshells in the garbage bag belong to your wife. Some of them were for you. As he said, I won't take the garbage until she begs, pleads, grovels, and reminds me to take the garbage. Then I'll take the garbage. Right? I'm doing it for her, but I'll do you a favor and take the garbage. Oh, I don't mind if there's garbage in the house. That's what he said to me. But obviously, you can do it for your wife. It doesn't count. But I'll tell you where it does count. There's a halacha. You're not allowed to ask a Kohen to do things for you. That is a halacha in Shulchan Aruch in Kuf Chaf Ches or a Chaim. Kuf Chav Ches Sif Cotton Mem Hey. Gee, how do I know that so well? And it says, Ein mishtamshin bekoin bezman hazeh. Osir lishtamish bekoin bezman hazeh. That is a direct quote. It's the only direct quote that I know, but it's a direct quote. Osir lishtamish bekoin bezman hazeh. That means you can't ask a Kohen to do things for it. Now there are limitations on this. For example, if it's a prominent individual who you're honored to do something for him, so then you're allowed to do it for him. You're not allowed to do a Kohen. Avram, this is Nogea Lamaisa. You're not allowed to do something degrading. A Kohen is not allowed to go and if you have like in the Yeshiva, like you can't go in and clean the bathroom here voluntarily. For work, if you're a plumber, that you could do if you're being paid for it. But to do something degrading, a Kohen's not allowed to. It's a halacha. And you're not allowed to ask a Kohen to do something for you. Now, the Kohen is allowed to relinquish his honor and do it for you. But if the Kohen, let's say you'd ask me to do something for you, and I get this all the time. People at Ohr Somayach, there used to be, nowadays nobody uses mail anymore, but it used to be, Ohr Somayach had on a daily basis, because there are a lot of guys who are flying back and forth. So in the main office, they used to have a mail bag. So people would put their letters in, and then the guy would go to America and then drop it in the mail in America instead of putting it in Israel. Then it would get there. It would get there sometime the next Yovel. So people would take it to America and put a whole bag. Each day, the office had a bag going out with some student who was leaving, going to America. So people knew that. They would ask me to bring an envelope to Ohr Somayach to put in the mail. Now, by the letter of the law, they shouldn't be asking me. So I'm willing to do the guy a favor. I have no problem with it. But if I'm doing it only because I'm embarrassed to say no, I don't want the guy to think I'm a schnook, and I really don't want to do it. I'm really not interested in schlepping something, bring a package to so-and-so. I'm not interested in doing that because it's an inconvenience. And I'm doing it only because I'm embarrassed to say no, then he's transgressing a Torah command of a Kiddush. I checked to see it applies, does this apply to Kohanim who are minors? And their poskim will say, yeah, even though he's a minor, he's still got the Kedusha of a Kohen. So it applies. Somebody was going to ask a question. Somebody had a question. Alan, you had a question? Somebody had a question. That's a halacha. That's a kiddush. Okay. Take a look at pasuk Yud. Alan, you said so. You did like that to me when I said I can't ask for money. But just 1 second. In not so fast. Not so. Truma you have to give because the Torah says you have to give. Those are certain things you have to give. But then again, Kohanim didn't own land.
Can we get Truma now?
No, there's no Truma now. No Truma now. Sorry. There's Pidyon Aben. I've done redemption. You can redeem the firstborn. That still applies nowadays. And then you make about 300 shekels at a redemption. Anybody need to be redeemed, by the way? Yeah.
There is a point that we like kind of skip. If the daughter of a Cohen will be desecrated straight
I'm not doing.
Yeah, it's like nice, like small little detail in instruction of the.
Consumed by fire over here does not mean literally fire. I mean, therefore, when it says he's reading the pasuk, I wasn't going to go into this. It's not. It says ubasish kohen kisicha liznos. If the daughter of a Kohen who's married commits adultery, she has a different penalty than a different girl. A regular Jewish girl who commits adultery. So she is the penalty for adultery is strangulation. There are 4 types of capital offenses: skila, sreifa, hereg, and chenek. Skila means, they always translate skila, what's that?
Stoning, no?
Stoning, but it's not, you see, the skila begins with being pushed off a platform. The platform is about twice an average person's height. Figure the top of a basketball backboard. And so they're pushed off that platform for various averas like desecrating Shabbos, but you need witnesses. And if they don't die from the fall, which most people would die from a fall like that, if they don't die from the fall, then you drop stones on them. That's skila. Sreifa is not being burnt at the stake. Sreifa is they would take a piece of molten lead, they would melt lead, they take a hot piece of lead and down the throat. That's sreifa. It burns the insides. Yeah, listen. It should be avoided, right? If somebody commits adultery with his mother-in-law, then he gets sreifa, right? So it definitely, if it should be avoided. And then there's hereg, which is beheading, standard beheading, almost painless, and also should be avoided. And chenek, which is strangulation, where they would take a rope, put the rope around the guy's neck, 2 guys on opposite ends, and there'd be a tug of war with his head in between. Right, that's great. Now, also recommended to avoid. Now, for standard, there's a grading system of which one is worse. How bad is it? So the Gemara divides it into 2 categories. Skila and sreifa are worse than hereg and chenek. Stoning and burning are worse than beheading and strangulation. So a normal girl, a Bas Yisrael, who commits adultery after she's married, she gets the lowest level penalty. That's the penalty for adultery is chenek. Anybody who a man commits adultery also, he gets chenek. The daughter of a Kohen who commits adultery, she moves up 2 grades. She gets the fire ready. And the reason is because she's degraded her husband. There are different explanations among the commentaries. She's had a better upbringing if her father's a Kohen, so she's really gone off the rails over here. She should have really known better because she's been raised in a Kohen's family and so on and so forth. But it's not, these are things that rarely happen. Okay, now take a look at Pasuk Yud, page 674, 4 lines from the top. V'ha-Kohen ha-Gadol me'echav, the Kohen Gadol, asher yutzak al rosho shemen ha-mishcha has been anointed, Umile es yodo lilbo shesa begodim. He wears the fancy garments. Es rosho lo yifro vegodov lo yifrom. In the case of a death, he never allows his hair to grow wild, which is what a mourner does. He allows it to grow more than 30 days. And he does not rend his garments. Let's see what other limitations there are on him. Val kol nafshos meis lo yavo. He does not come in contact with any dead bodies. La'aviv u'la'imo lo yitama. His mother, his father, or any of the other relatives, the Kohen Gadol's got a limitation. He doesn't come into contact with any of the deceased relatives. Why? He just has to proceed. He doesn't show any signs of mourning. Why is that? The basic idea here is that the Kohen Gadol is the spiritual leader of the people. As the spiritual leader of the people, he has to be completely detached from allowing anything that happens in the physical, material world to affect his spiritual level. That means he has to be on such a high level that even the death of a relative does not throw him off, and he's able to continue the service in the Beis HaMikdash. And so the Kohen Gadol does not have any, he is not allowed to come into contact with the next of kin. Well, we're going to see another explanation in a little while, much deeper idea. But that's the basic idea. Now, you'll notice take a look at the pasuk, the 4 lines from the top, where it says, "V'hakohen hagodol me'echav," the Kohen who is greater than his brothers, which hagodol me'echav means the Kohen Gadol. So here, the Gemara says, the Gemara learns on the Kohen hagodol me'echav, gadlehu me'echav. Gadlehu me'echav means that if the Kohen Gadol is not rich, if he's poor or he's average, the other Kohanim have to give him money to make him rich. That's why I've sent in my application, by the way. I would like to be the Kohen Gadol. Good job.
What's the status?
What's the status? The chances, you mean. The chances are slim at this point. But, I'm running as an independent, like Robert Kennedy Jr. We're hoping for a miracle. But the Kohen Gadol, the Kohen Gadol, the other, why is that? Why do they have to make him rich? We can't make the Kohen Gadol rich. We just said that he has to be completely devoid. He's not even allowed to come into contact with his relatives. Why does he care about money?
They should be thinking about it.
He shouldn't even have that on his head. Shouldn't have his parnas on his head. What good? What else?
Like a king.
Why is that? There's a certain respect people have to have for the Kohen Gadol. He shouldn't need anything from anybody. And there's a respect you have for wealthy people. It's prominence. And that's a fact of life. That's a fact of life. The Gemara says, Rabbi mechabed es ha'ashirim. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi would honor wealthy people. Rabbi Akiva mechabed ashirim. Rabbi Akiva would honor wealthy people. Why? Why are you honoring wealthy people? All the guy did, how did the guy, the story, this guy, they come into this businessman. There's this wealthy guy. He said to him, how did you make your money? How did I make my money? How did I make my money? When I was 9 years old, I was running a paper route. When I was 13 years old, I was mowing lawns. When I was 16, I was working in a McDonald's. And I was 22, a rich uncle of mine died and left me a pile. Right? So you got a lot of people in the world who are very wealthy, and they never worked a day in their life. All they did is their father died. Somebody once said, you know what it means to be thrifty? What is thrifty? No, it means to be careful with your money. It's called thrift. Thrift is a very, very good trait, especially in an ancestor. Right? You want to have an ancestor who is careful with his money, right? Because thrift is a good trait, sure, because this guy inherited it. So what did he do? All he did was his father died and he became rich. So what's the big hack? The answer is, why is it? Why Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, who himself was rich? Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was rich. Rabbi Akiva was rich. The Gemara says Rabbi Akiva became rich from 6 different places. He had 6 different treasures that came to Rabbi Akiva, the Gemara says. They honored rich people. Why? Why? What did the guy do? So he made money. So what? The world calls it being successful. Oh, he's very successful. He's successful at what? He's successful. How did they define success in the world? Success in the world is defined if you make money. It doesn't mean you were successful in life. It just means you were successful at making money. Remember the game of life? You ever play the game of life? You spin that thing. How do you win the game?
Cheating.
Yeah, I didn't say how I won. I say what's the object? The object of the game isn't to cheat. That's the method. That's not the object. I didn't think you had it in you. Oh, you too. So we'll compare notes afterwards. Right? How do you win the game of life? By having the most money. That's how you win the game of life, by having the most money. That was also a fine moment, by the way. I had one game, you win. That's the world's definition of success. I was actually playing life with my brother. If you were losing bad, so you always had that one chance on Millionaire Acre. You could put your car and all your possessions on one number and spin the wheel. And if it hits the wheel, you automatically win the game, no matter what happened before that. Otherwise, you go to the poor farm, right? But one time I got it. One time I got it against my brother. He was not a happy camper. Right? I was getting schmeared. I think it was a 9. That was always my favorite number. And sure enough, I spun it. But then there were accusations that I didn't spin it, which I'm not saying that it wasn't true, but what do you call it? Why did they honor poor people, rich people? So what? So the guy's rich. So what? So why are you honoring him? What's the answer? What do you say, Baruch?
Because they have got a big blessing.
Correct. Very good. That means that they got a bracha from Hashem. People say to you, listen, being rich is not a blessing. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's a test. There's a test of wealth and a test of poverty. They're both a test. When you test with money, you're also, what are you going to do with your money? But ultimately, what's that? You're going to make more money.
No, can I get a test of rich,
What's that?
Can I get a test of being rich, not test of being poverty?
You're supposed to
Is
daven
there an
for
option to choose? Is there an option to choose?
No, there's an option to daven for it. There's no option to choose, because then there'd be no poor people in the world. But there's a test. There's a test of poverty, test of wealth. But ultimately, it's a blessing. If you make a lot of money, you have to make a bracha. It's a tova meitiv. Hashem gave you, if you get a windfall, you make a bracha. Depending on how much the windfall is, right? So, but it could also derail you. It could be the road to Gehenna for certain people. But it's ultimately exactly what Baruch says. Ultimately, objectively, it's a bracha. If Hashem has chosen this person to give him the bracha, whether he inherited it, whether he worked for it, whether he made a good investment, however it works that Hashem gave him that bracha, that's something to honor. We're not honoring the money. We're honoring the person because Hashem obviously gave him the money. But there is human nature is that we look at somebody who's got money as a prominent individual. The Mesilas Yesharim, not the Mesilas, the Orchos Tzadikim says, if you're a member of a community, let's say you're a member of a shul or of a community, and you've got a very good idea for the community, some project that you think the community should embark on, you got a good idea. You know what it says? Don't present it yourself. Tell it over to either a Talmid Chacham or a wealthy man and let them present it to the community, because that carries more weight. If a Talmid Chacham says it, carries more weight, and if a wealthy man says it, it carries more weight, probably more weight than the Talmid Chacham. Right? And that's why. So it says, "V'kidashto ve'akohen hagodol me'echav." Kohen Gadol me'echav gadleyu mishalechav. The other Kohanim have to donate in order to make him rich. Number one. Number two, I saw a fascinating insight. One of the Mefarshim says, who was the first Kohen Gadol? Aaron. Who was his brother? Moshe. So this alludes to Aaron and to other Kohen Gadols. But the first one is Aaron, and therefore it alludes to him. V'hakohen hagodol me'echav. The Kohen who is greater than his brother. That means in a certain way, Aaron HaKohen was greater than Moshe Rabbeinu. How so? So the Mefarshim say like this. When the Jewish people, when they did the Aveira of the golden calf, so Moshe Rabbeinu went to bat for them. Right? He pleaded on their behalf with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But when he pleaded for the Jewish people, HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not forgive until Moshe Rabbeinu invoked the merit of the Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. He had to say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, remember the forefathers, and only after that, and it was 40 days of pleading, with invoking the merit of the Avos, and only after that, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu forgives the Jewish people. And even then, there's still a certain amount of accountability. The Gemara says that every time there's suffering in this world for the Jewish people, individually, collectively, some of it is payback for the sin of the golden calf. How do you like that? And every time the Jewish people go through any suffering, if there are missiles coming in from Gaza and somebody gets hurt or whatever it is, a building's destroyed, some of that is because of the golden calf. Could be other Averas. And for each individual as well. Person stubs his toe, some of it is because he ran out of shul early, possibly, or he ran out of a store after shoplifting. But some of it is because of the sin of the golden calf. It's still there. What about the Kohen Gadol? He goes in one time into the Holy of Holies, begs on behalf of the Jewish people, and there's a total forgiveness one day a year. One day a year he goes into the Holy of Holies, he goes in a couple of times, but one day a year he goes into the Holy of Holies, begs for the Jewish people, and the Jewish people are forgiven. So in a certain sense, HaKohen HaGadol Me'achav. That means that there's a certain effectiveness or a power or an energy that the Kohen Gadol has that even Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't able to activate. That the Kohen HaGadol, that he was able to get a forgiveness for the Jewish people. Okay, let's go on. Yeah.
Could Aaron ask forgiveness in that day for golden calf? Why do we have to suffer in half for that,
But he didn't. Moshe Rabbeinu did. Moshe Rabbeinu pleaded. Aaron was the one who was the catalyst who was involved. So apparently that's why he didn't get involved with asking for forgiveness. That's a good answer. If I say so myself. That's why it's a good question, by the way. Anytime if I have an answer, it's automatically a good question. If I don't have an answer, I told you, then it's just a technical question, a side question. Okay, take a look now at Posuk Yud Ches. Down the page. Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe Lebor. Now here, Posuk Yud Zayin, 6 lines to the bottom. Now pay attention carefully. Daber el Aaron Lemor, Ish mizaracha ledorosa mashayeh bo mum, any man, referring to the Kohanim, who have some sort of physical imperfection, lo yikrav lahakriv lechem Elohav. He does not serve in the Beis HaMikdash. The Sanhedrin sat in the Beis HaMikdash, and they each day, as the Kohanim came in, the Sanhedrin examined them, and any Kohen who had some sort of physical wound, blemish, there's a whole list in the Gemara. There's a whole list of what constitutes physical. Some of them are actually deformities, but something as simple as being left-handed would disqualify somebody from serving in the Beis HaMikdash if he's left-handed. Could be if he trains himself, it would change. But I remember when my first nephew was born, so we noticed when he was about 1.5, 2 years old, it looked like he was a lefty, and he's a Cohen. So I suggested to my sister-in-law they should tie his left hand behind his back and train him to be a righty. So she said, well, maybe we'll just tie your left hand behind your back. And that was the end of that conversation, but that suggestion didn't go over well. And then in Hashem's sense of humor, my oldest son is also a lefty. So I didn't tie his hand behind his back either. But something as simple as being left-handed or other deformities that he's disqualified. Now, let's understand what's going on here. Why is that? Why is that? And the answer is that people often think, it's a very important concept that Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch mentioned, people, when it comes to religion, people think that religion is the realm of the mentally unstable and unhealthy. Well, yeah, guy's off, a guy's unstable, or he's what do you call it? That's why people become religious. So a person has to know that the religion is not the realm of the unhealthy. And this is especially true, by the way, with Bali Chuvas, where there's a stereotype. People think, yeah, sure, the guy's what do you call it? The guy's unbalanced, so he became a Baal Tshuva. You do find among Baal Tshuvas over the course of the years, I've been here many, many years, there is a percentage of guys who are unstable or what you would call socially off or unbalanced. But that exists in the non-Jewish world also. Very often people who have mental illnesses, they have delusions of grandeur when it comes to religion. Right? Oh, a guy thinks he's Yashka. Or the guy thinks he's like, hey, you're Yashka, let's see your palms. No, no holes there, you ain't him. Or a guy thinks he's what he called, he's the Messiah. Or a guy, I've met a couple of guys, one guy was Eliyahu. I think I've met 2 Eliyahu Hanavis and one Mashiach in the course of my life. And there's always delusions of God. It's interesting, none of the mentally unstable people say, no one ever comes along and says, I think I'm Michael Jordan. You know why? That can easily be disproven, right? They could easily be disproven. Nobody comes along and says that I'm Wayne Gretzky. Oh yeah, let's see you skate across the room. Nobody says that. But a guy comes along and says, yes, I had a communication. Go disprove it. The guy says, yeah, I had a communication from above. I had a vision. Right? Oh, well, I have no way to disprove that other than locking the guy up because he's danger to society. But I can't disprove it because he claims he had a vision. So when a guy once came to Reb Chaim Kanievsky. Reb Chaim Kanievsky had a tremendous amount of people, people who are just unfortunately mentally unwell. So a guy came to Reb Chaim Kanievsky, he said to him, listen, I'm the Mashiach, but nobody's gonna accept it if I say it. I want you to publicize it. Now, imagine somebody said, what would your reaction be?
Get out.
Yeah, something like that. You know what Reb Chaim Kanievsky did? He said to the guy, oh, okay, if you're in a Mashiach, the Gemara says, the Gemara in Sanhedrin says, Mashiach, when he comes riding in on his donkey is going to have 100 different colors. The donkey is going to be made up of 100 different colors. Do you have that donkey? The guy goes, no. He says, get the donkey, then come back. When you have the donkey, then we'll talk. We'll see what the next stage is. Nice. Instead of calling the cops or calling the happy home, so he what do you call it? He gets rid of. He manages to dismiss the guy by plays the game with him and dismisses him. The guy's still looking for his donkey. The guy's looking for the donkey with 100 colors. But Rav Hirsch says that now there is true. There's a percentage, but my what do you call it? In my experience and everybody's experience is, people who do not become unstable because of religion. They don't become unstable and become unhinged because of the Torah. They means they were unhinged before they got to Torah. They didn't become unhinged. A person didn't learn Torah. Torah is only good. Nobody learned Torah and became crazy from Torah. They may have become crazy because they didn't learn Torah properly. And they may have pushed themselves too much and deprived themselves from sleep and so on and so forth. That's not the Torah's fault, that's the person doing it. There's a stereotype of people, oh yeah, he went to yeshiva and he cracked up in yeshiva. He didn't crack up in yeshiva because of Torah. He cracked up in yeshiva because he did it wrong. He could also crack up in other areas of life too. So that's the first thing that he says, that the Torah is telling you. In the Beis HaMikdash, who serves in the Beis HaMikdash? These are people who are healthy, physical specimens, and it's an honor for the Beis HaMikdash. You don't take a look at the honor guard in England. The honor guard in England, they don't serve an actual purpose. They're not actual security guys, but they are all fine physical specimens, and they're all very uniform, and they're all looking. You don't have a bunch of cripples walking around over there, or a bunch of oddballs, or a bunch of hunchbacks walking around as the honor guard, because it's not an honor. When you walk into the Beis HaMikdash, you see the Kohanim, and the Kohanim look good, and they're all in uniform, and it has an effect on the person who's seeing it. And if you walk into the Beis HaMikdash, and it looks like you're in a leper colony, so then you yourself are affected by it negatively. And therefore the Torah says that they're a person with a mum, with some sort of physical imperfection, does not serve in the Beis HaMikdash. I think it could also be wearing glasses, by the way. It could be also eyesight. It could be if you wear contacts, it's different. I think it's disgusting. Contemporary poskim talk about the what would count, if it could be changed, and so on and so forth. That's what the Torah says. No oddballs. The religion is not the realm of oddballs, number one. Now let's take it a little deeper. Watch this. Stay with this. What are the limitations on Kohanim? They have marriage limitations. They're not allowed to come in contact with death. And they're not allowed to have any sort of physical imperfection. Okay. Who is the model, the ultimate in this area is who? The Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol. Because what did you say? Aaron is the Kohen Gadol. Okay. Aaron. The Kohen Gadol has the most limitations. What are his limitations? Other Kohanim can come into contact with their next of kin. He can't even do that. Other Kohanim are allowed to marry a widow. He can't even do that. He has to marry a woman who's never been with a man before.
He does, and he becomes a Kohen Gadol.
He can stay married. But he can't marry her before that. He can't. Once he's the Kohen Gadol, he can't marry. He's got a limitation. Once somebody else said yesterday. If he's married to her already, then he becomes a Kohen Gadol. That's one thing. But he cannot marry a woman who's a widow.
He's not disqualified.
No, he cannot marry a woman who's a widow once he's a Kohen Gadol. And number 3, he certainly can't have any physical imperfections. So, what does the Kohen Gadol really represent? The Kohen Gadol represents the Jewish people. He's the one who pulls the Jewish people up spiritually. The Kohen Gadol is a reminder, when was man at their most perfect state in history? Adam Harishon Kodem Hachet. Adam before the original sin. Before the original sin, that was the ultimate perfection. The Gemara says Adam Harishon was as tall as from the earth to the heavens. And Adam Harishon had one marriage. Adam Harishon had no illness. When did death come to the world? Only after the original Avera. Before the original Avera, they would have lived forever. If they wouldn't have eaten the fruit, they would have lived forever. When did illness come to the world?
Yeah.
Only after Yaakov, only after Adam Harishon. Had he not sinned, there would be no illness, which represents any mum, any physical imperfection is a sign of illness. It's an illness of sorts. It's an imperfection. There would have been no physical flaws whatsoever. There would have been no colds. There would have been no flu. There would have been no corona. Nothing. When did it start? It started after the original sin. So there would have been no death. There would have been no illness, and there would have been perfect marriages. Talk about miracles, right? There would have been perfect marriage. You get married once, and you stayed married for eternity. Could you imagine? You get married once, stay married for eternity. And there would be no credit cards, right? She would never ask you for the credit card, right? What could be better? So there was what we call, that would be a perfect situation. The Kohen Gadol, his limitations are to remind us of what the ultimate level is. The ultimate level is Adam Harishon Kodem Hachet. The closest we could get to that in this world is the Kohen Gadol himself, because the Kohen Gadol has no death. He's not allowed to come into contact with death. He's not allowed to have any physical imperfections, which is illness, and he's only allowed to marry a woman who's supposed to symbolically the perfect marriage. And therefore, the Kohen Gadol, that's what the common denominator among all these limitations are. Okay. Should we go on to the next one, or should we leave that for tomorrow? Okay, we'll leave it for tomorrow. Leave it for tomorrow. The what do you call it?
Thank you.
Okay.